I transmigrated into a novel, becoming a poor, unnoticeable supporting character. When I saw the male lead fiercely toss away the bank card, offered by the vicious, supporting female lead, coldly yelling, "I don't need your charity!" The female lead beside him also chimed in, "Don't look down on us. Don't despise the poor." I immediately bent down without hesitation and picked up the bank card. I looked up at the supporting female lead and sincerely said, "I need your charity, miss. Go ahead and look down on me." The three main characters, male lead, female lead, and supporting female lead, paused for a moment. From that day on, I naturally became the supporting female lead's little tail, embarking on the path to the pinnacle of my life. On the day of enrollment, the university gate was crowded. I squeezed my way in and immediately spotted the three main characters of this world, the male lead, the female lead, and the vicious supporting female lead. The supporting female lead, Kaylin Bonita, was seen shoving a bank card into the hand of the impoverished male lead. The male lead, looking disgusted, shook her hand off and coldly snapped, "Kaylin Bonita, I don't need your charity." The plainly dressed female lead nodded in agreement, sternly saying, "Don't look down on us, take your dirty money and get lost." Kaylin Bonita's face flushed with anger, and she stood there, unsure how to react. I saw the bank card fall to the ground, my eyes lighting up. If I remember correctly, there were a full 50,000 yuan inside. Without hesitation, I rushed over to pick up the card, sincerely looking at Kaylin Bonita and saying, "I need your charity. Miss, go ahead and look down on me." Kaylin Bonita seemed relieved, her expression softening slightly. She waved her hand and said, "It's yours." The female lead looked at the bank card with a hint of regret, then glared at me venomously. In the original novel, the two protagonists, though poor, had great integrity, and always refused the malicious supporting female lead's help. They would eventually accept, but only after a dramatic tug-of-war. My intervention definitely made them hate me to death. But I pretended not to notice and praised her profusely. "Miss Kaylin, you are so kind." She looked at me and asked, "Are you really short on money?" I nodded eagerly. Kaylin Bonita casually handed me a small gift box. Inside was a diamond necklace. She said, "Take my luggage up to the dorm. Consider this your payment." The female lead's face became even uglier. According to the original plot, when the supporting female lead tried to win over the male lead, she would also try to win over the female lead, his childhood friend. This necklace was originally meant for the female lead. I immediately carried Kaylin Bonita's luggage towards the dormitory. I didn't do this because I was shameless, but because I was genuinely too poor. 5 years ago, I had a car accident and transmigrated into a dirt-poor supporting character in the novel. How poor? At home, I lived in a dilapidated hut, wore only tattered clothes discarded by others, and rarely ate meat throughout the year. Fortunately, I excelled in school, received tuition fee waivers, and often got scholarships. Otherwise, my stingy parents would have forced me to quit school and marry long ago. After the university entrance exam, they even wanted to tie me up and marry me off to a single middle-aged man in the neighboring village in exchange for a dowry. I immediately took my admission letter and the small amount of savings I had accumulated over the years and ran away from home. Recently, I had been working part-time to earn enough for tuition, but I was still short on living expenses. Now, with this 50,000 yuan, it's enough for my entire 4 years of university. When I arrived at the dormitory, I discovered that I was roommates with Kaylin Bonita. I suddenly remembered that in the novel, Kaylin Bonita often tried to please the female lead in the dorm, only to receive sarcasm and rejection. The female lead always said, "Are you looking down on me? Although I'm poor, I have hands and feet, and I don't need your charity." That's what she said. But she eventually accepted it. Being close to the water makes it easy to catch the moon's reflection. I tightly clenched my fist. If the female lead doesn't need it, let me endure it for her. I'm such a good person. I'm moved to tears. Thinking of the bright future, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Kaylin Bonita found it strange and asked, "What are you laughing about?" I sincerely replied, "Thinking about getting to live with a beautiful and kind young lady like you for 4 years of university, I'm overjoyed beyond words." Kaylin Bonita's face blushed slightly. "I'm not as good as you say. Just call me Kaylin." She looked at my meager luggage, slightly surprised. "Is this all you brought for enrollment?" My belongings were very simple, only 2 sets of clothes and 1 pair of shoes. As for personal items, I plan to buy them at the supermarket later. This is all my property." Kaylin Bonita frowned slightly. Without a word, she grabbed my hand and pulled me along. "I'm taking you shopping." This young lady doesn't allow her follower to dress so shabbily. I didn't resist at all, easily accepting the fact that I had become Kaylin Benita's follower. Being a follower is good too. I remember in the novel, Kaylin Benita was very generous to her follower. But unfortunately, that person was just like the protagonists. Having excessively high self-esteem, thinking Kaylin Benita's kindness was contempt, and ultimately stabbed her in the back. This time, that will absolutely not happen. At the shopping center, Kaylin Benita led me into the fashion area and started talking non-stop. This looks good on you, wrap it up. That one suits you too, wrap it up. And this one? I glanced at the price tags, took a deep breath. Each item was worth several months of my living expenses. I quickly interjected. It's too expensive. Clothes at the small shops behind the school are perfectly fine. Kaylin Benita waved her hand. Don't try to save money for this young lady. The one thing I don't lack is money. She truly moved me to tears. In less than half an hour, my hands were full of large and small bags. If I hadn't been unable to carry any more, Kaylin Benita would probably have continued shopping. She wasn't done yet, but had to say, well, that's enough for now. Passing by a jewelry store, she paused again and asked, Mary, don't you feel like your hands and neck are missing something? I knew immediately what she was planning and quickly shook my head. I'm fine as I am. Kaylin Benita said sternly, No, I cannot allow my follower to dress so simply. If others look down on you, they are looking down on me, understand? I could only cheer internally, feeling like a rain of wealth was about to pour down on me. Leaving the jewelry store, I had a diamond necklace around my neck and an exquisite bracelet on my wrist. Later, I thought wearing jewelry to school was too ostentatious, so I secretly took it off and put it away before entering the school gate. When I returned to the dormitory, the 4 other roommates were already there, including the female lead, Susan. As soon as Susan saw me carrying bags, she immediately frowned at Kaylin Benita. Kaylin Benita, you've gone too far. Mary is your classmate, not your servant. Making her carry so many things, you truly have no respect for others. I was about to open my mouth to explain, but Susan cut me off. Mary, you don't need to speak up for her. I know her type best. She flaunts her money and openly looks down on people. The word respect has never been in her dictionary. Kaylin Benita was naturally short-tempered. Being spoken to like that, she didn't bother to clarify and snapped back. When did I tell her to do anything? Why are you barking like a dog? The other roommates all looked annoyed. Enough! We're all roommates, talk properly! At this point, Susan played the role of the magnanimous person, saying in an aggrieved voice, forget it. I believe Kaylin Benita meant no harm towards me. Don't fight because of me, everyone. Kaylin Benita was furious, ready to say more, but I quickly spoke. First, enough, Susan. You're the only one who won't stop talking. This pile of things isn't Kaylin Benita's, it's mine. Susan craned her neck, her face full of disbelief. How can that be? You're so poor, how could you afford these things? Could it be that you're being kept? I replied, so what if I'm poor? Am I eating your family's rice? You said Kaylin Benita doesn't respect others, but I think you're the one who doesn't know how to respect. At least, Kaylin Benita has never looked down on me for being poor. What about you? As soon as you saw me buy things, you immediately suspected me of stealing, suspected I was being kept? Susan, we're all classmates. This is our first meeting. How can you have such malicious assumptions? I really didn't expect the words my mother told me about cultured city people look down on country folk to shatter like a soap bubble at the first meeting. I deliberately raised my voice, then quietly shed tears, looking at Susan, with eyes full of hurt, as if I had just suffered a terrible injustice. Pretending to be pitiful, acting like a delicate little flower? Who doesn't know how to do that trick? Sure enough, the way the roommates looked at Susan was suddenly tinged with dissatisfaction. Susan quickly spoke up. I wasn't looking down on you. My family is quite ordinary, too. I immediately concluded, I understand now. You're the type of person who hates the rich. Seeing Kaylin Benita's good circumstances, you deliberately slandered her, right? Susan stammered. You misunderstood. In the past, Kaylin Benita really was. Actually, in the original novel, Susan was exactly the type of person who couldn't stand Kaylin Benita living well. Part of it was fear that Kaylin Benita would steal her childhood friend, and the other part was jealousy that Kaylin Benita easily had the life she had always dreamed of. Therefore, she always intentionally or unintentionally made things difficult for Kaylin Benita. I cut her off. I don't care about the past. I only believe what I see with my own eyes. Kaylin Benita is beautiful and kind. Seeing that I had few clothes, she insisted on buying them for me. I said I could buy cheap ones, but she deliberately chose expensive things. If you dare to badmouth my friend in front of me again, don't blame me for being impolite. I glared at her, looking like I was ready to take on the world to protect Kaylin Bonita. In the eyes of the roommates, my actions were not unreasonable. On the contrary, they showed loyalty. Susan opened her mouth to say something but couldn't refute. She lowered her head, said, "I'm sorry to Kaylin Bonita," and then hurriedly pushed the door open and ran out of the room, looking utterly wronged. Afterward, Kaylin Bonita was so moved that she shoved another card into my hand, which contained 100,000 yuan. It was the first time in my life I had seen Susan stifle a reply without being able to retaliate, and the feeling was truly exhilarating. Holding the heavy bank card in my hand, I was also moved to tears. That evening, Kaylin Bonita was in a terrific mood, so she invited the entire room out for barbecue. She chose a famous online restaurant, whose prices were exorbitant, a place difficult for students like us to afford. Before eating, the roommates competed to take photos and post them on their social media. Who got such a fairy-like roommate who invited them to a feast right after enrollment? "Oh, it's me!" Below were likes and jealous comments. The atmosphere at the dining table was cheerful and harmonious, completely different from the original novel, where, on the first day of enrollment, Kaylin Bonita was labeled arrogant and contemptuous, causing the roommates to shun her. When the meal was almost over, the roommates went to the restroom together. Just then, the male lead, Galvin, appeared, bringing his childhood friend, Susan. Galvin's face was dark. He pulled Susan's hand toward them, pointed at Kaylin Bonita, and said, "Kaylin Bonita, enough! I don't accept your flattery. Just take it out on me. Why are you taking it out on Susan?" At first, Kaylin Bonita looked delighted to see Galvin. But upon hearing his scolding, she immediately exploded. She turned to Susan and angrily shouted, "You're trying to sow discord between me and Galvin again." Susan took a step back as if startled. She covered her mouth, tears welling up in her eyes, and whispered, "Kaylin, I didn't. It's just that Galvin was heartbroken to see I wasn't invited to dinner, so he thought you were deliberately isolating me." She then turned to Galvin, shaking her head and saying, "Galvin, I'm okay. I'm of humble background and not worthy of sitting at the same dining table as a young lady like Kaylin. It's normal for her not to invite me." Galvin was utterly distressed upon hearing this. He glared at Kaylin Bonita. "Kaylin Bonita, look how kind and understanding Susan is. You insulted her, yet she still defends you. Are you still denying it?" Kaylin Bonita's nose stung. She choked up and said, "I didn't insult her." Galvin's eyes were cold, still denying it. "I know you best. Apologize to Susan immediately." Kaylin Bonita, who was usually so arrogant, would lose control and become pitifully weak whenever she encountered the male lead. But this time, I absolutely wouldn't let Galvin have the chance to trample on her self-esteem again. I gently squeezed Kaylin Bonita's hand, signaling her to let me handle it. I spoke up. Why should she apologize? Just now, Kaylin told me to invite Susan to dinner, but she didn't want to come. She's the one who's wrong. What does it have to do with Kaylin? Susan said coldly, "I'm wrong? When did you invite me?" I wasn't rushed. I slowly took out my phone and played the call recording. In the recording, as soon as I opened my mouth, I clearly said, "Susan, Kaylin told me to call you." Right as I opened my mouth, Susan's cold voice immediately cut me off on the other end. "You dog running after Kaylin Bonita. Don't bother me." After saying that, she hung up the phone. I then said, "Did everyone hear that? Kaylin told me to invite Susan. She was the one who was unreasonable, even calling me a dog running after someone before hanging up." I knew the female lead's personality well, both weak and fond of playing the victim. When Kaylin Bonita invited the roommates to dinner without calling her, I anticipated that she would pull this stunt. That's why I prepared in advance. After listening to the recording, Galvin's expression softened considerably, and his gaze towards Susan began to show some reproach. Susan's face was pale. She was about to open her mouth to continue shifting the blame when a sudden incident occurred. Kaylin Bonita, who had been suppressing her anger from being falsely accused, suddenly exploded. She lunged straight at Susan, slapped her fiercely, and said, "You bitch! I tolerated you sowing discord between me and Galvin all the time, but how dare you bully my Mary? What did she do to provoke you?" Galvin quickly rushed over to hold Kaylin Bonita's hand. But I was faster. I firmly grabbed his wrist and unceremoniously gave him 2 slaps, saying, "I don't allow you to touch a single hair on my miss." The scene descended into chaos. Fortunately, the restaurant staff intervened in time to separate us. I looked back at the protagonists, whose faces clearly showed red handprints, hair disheveled, and scratches on their necks. As for Kaylin, Benita, and me, apart from a few wrinkles on our clothes, we were unharmed. In this battle, Kaylin, Benita, and I were the big winners. I proudly puffed out my chest and held my head high. Male lead, I've been annoyed with you for a long time. You started your business entirely with the supporting female lead's help, yet later you caused her company to go bankrupt and her family to fall apart. And you dared to say that her using money to pressure you made you feel humiliated? What about now? Don't you feel humiliated? I will definitely not let Kaylin Benita spend another penny on the male lead. I'll take on that humiliation for him. Just then, the roommates returned from the restroom. Seeing the protagonist's pathetic state, they asked blankly, "What happened?" I shrugged. What else could it be? Because Kaylin invited us to eat but didn't invite Susan, she brought her childhood friend to cause trouble for Kaylin. One friend widened her eyes. Susan, is that shameless? It's Kaylin's right to invite whoever she wants. What does it have to do with her? Another friend added, that behavior is no different from begging for food. No, it's not even like that. Beggars are much more polite than her. The former friend quickly said, keep your voice down. Susan is still sitting there. The friend who had been scolding earlier replied without reservation, why keep quiet? If she dares to do it, shouldn't we dare to talk about it? Because Kaylin Benita was so generous, treating the entire room to a feast, the roommates already had a good impression of her. Now seeing Susan's excessive behavior, their sympathy immediately shifted entirely to Kaylin Benita. Sensing the disdainful looks from everyone around them, the protagonists. Faces turned white then green, feeling unbearable embarrassment. With their arrogant personalities, this slight humiliation was a fatal blow. Galvin's face was dark. Who said we came here to beg for food? We're not beggars. It's just a meal. How could we not afford it? Saying that, he pulled Susan to an empty table nearby. This restaurant was famous online, with no prices listed on the menu. Dishes were priced according to market value. One had to ask the waiter for the price. Galvin was afraid of being called poor, so he didn't ask the prices and simply ordered a few random dishes. After ordering, he pretended to be generous and asked Susan, do you want anything else? Order freely. Don't worry about saving money for me. Susan was moved. Her eyes secretly glanced towards Kaylin Benita, and she whispered, Galvin, this isn't right. You've never even treated Kaylin to a meal. If you treat me so well, she won't be happy. Galvin frowned slightly and replied indifferently, don't worry about her. Kaylin Benita clenched her fist, clearly very angry. But just a moment later, the protagonists couldn't smile anymore. The bill arrived, totaling 22,305 yuan. Galvin frowned. We only ordered 5 dishes. Why is it so expensive? The waiter maintained a professional smile. You ordered imported seafood and Wagyu beef, top quality. The price is perfectly reasonable. Susan laughed awkwardly. We're students. Can we get a discount? The smile on the waiter's face faded a little. I'm sorry, no. Susan then turned and asked, Galvin, what should we do now? In the past, Galvin definitely could have afforded this amount. Although his family situation wasn't good, his father gambled, and his grandmother was severely ill. Kaylin Benita always found excuses to send him money. But now it was different. I, the poor little nobody, had intervened and snatched the bank card that Galvin had thrown away that day, so how could Galvin have any money now? Kaylin Benita would usually soften the moment she saw Galvin in trouble, ready to pay for him. But I immediately stopped her. Miss, absolutely don't do that. Think about it. When does Galvin hate you the most? It's when you give him money. Kaylin Benita was confused. Why is that? I replied, because he has extremely high self-esteem. Every time you help, in his eyes, it's an insult, as if he is incompetent and can only live off you. Kaylin Benita seemed enlightened and said, I understand. From now on, I will learn to respect him. As if to prove my words, the moment he saw the card in Kaylin Benita's hand, Galvin's face turned cold. Kaylin Benita, this is my business. Don't interfere. Kaylin Benita remembered my advice, afraid of being misunderstood, and quickly said, I won't interfere. I know you, Galvin, are the best. Saying that, she pulled me and rushed out of the restaurant as if a beast was chasing us from behind. Galvin was stunned. Susan uttered blankly. This time, Kaylin Benita really left? They both looked at the long bill, their faces panic-stricken. Susan asked, Galvin, what do we do? We're both poor students. How can we scrape up 20,000? Galvin tried to remain calm. There will be a way. We can still live well without Kaylin Benita. I looked back at them. Male lead, you'd better keep that so-called integrity forever. In the original novel, he always boasted, without Kalen Bonita, I can still succeed. I truly want to see if he can still become the outstanding man whom everyone admires without her now. Kalen Bonita hailed a taxi to take me back to school. In the car, she casually shoved the bank card she had just used into my hand and said, Mary, you helped me a lot today. Not only did you counterattack that green tea Susan, but you also helped me realize why Galvin hates me. This is my thank you gift. I received the heavy card in my hand, moved beyond words. I noticed that every time the protagonists had bad luck, my own fortune soared. Isn't that a kind of law of conservation of energy? I really like this law. Kalen Bonita curiously asked, How did you know Susan would make a fuss about this? And why did you secretly invite her to the party without telling me? I smiled, just a guess. I made the call just in case. She wrapped her arm around mine and said, I'm so lucky to have a junior who thinks for me like you. No, from now on, you're not my junior anymore. You're my friend. I thought of the bank cards in my pocket, my eyes welling up. Meeting Kalen Bonita was the greatest blessing of my life. I asked her back, Kalen, what do you like about Galvin? This was something I could never understand. Besides his face, Galvin had absolutely no redeeming qualities. Kalen Bonita quietly said, In the 10th grade, right after I started school, I argued with my family and was in a terrible mood. Crossing the street while distracted, I was almost hit by a car. Galvin pulled me back. From that moment, I fell for him. And from then on, I pursued him relentlessly. But sadly, he never paid attention to me, until today, thanks to your reminder. I just realized that the way I pursued Galvin before was completely wrong. Mary, can you give me some more advice on how to be with Galvin? I smiled. Of course. Arriving at the school gate, Kalen Bonita saw an old woman with a hunched back, selling fruit late at night and, without a word, bought everything from her. In truth, Kalen Bonita was an incredibly kind person. It's just a pity that she got involved with the two protagonists of the novel who were the center of this world. Anyone who opposed them was turned into cannon fodder, never meeting a good end. But Kalen Bonita had changed my fate, a poor passerby, and I also wanted to change her destiny. A good person like Kalen Bonita shouldn't have such a tragic ending. Not long after returning to the dorm, Susan also came back. She clearly knew she had played a very wrong hand today. Not only did she fail to slander Kalen Bonita, but she also caused her roommates to gradually distance themselves from her. If this continued, she would eventually be isolated. Therefore, as soon as she entered the room, Susan ran straight to Kalen Bonita, bowing deeply. Kalen, I'm truly sorry. I misunderstood. I thought when you invited Mary to dinner, you were deliberately not inviting me, intending to isolate me, so I brought Galvin to find you. I didn't mean it, and I didn't want to overreact. I'm just afraid of being hurt. My father passed away when I was little. My mother raised me alone. Classmates used to call me the fatherless child. No one played with me, and I was bullied. Later, Galvin helped me deal with them, and life became a little easier. As soon as she mentioned the past, her face became sorrowful. Tears streamed down uncontrollably. Hearing her weeping and recounting her story, a few roommates began to soften, feeling maybe they had been a bit cold towards her earlier. They comforted her. If it was just a misunderstanding, just explain it clearly. Susan bit her lip, looking utterly pitiful. Kalen, can you forgive me? Kalen Bonita had been hurt by her many times, so she clearly knew Susan's tactic of always acting weak and miserable to gain others' sympathy. Forgiving her now would be putting herself at a disadvantage. But if she strongly countered, people would inevitably pity Susan more, then turn around and accuse her of being petty and difficult. So, I didn't let her speak and actively intervened. Susan, actually, I'm quite jealous of you. Susan was stunned and asked, What? I continued, You have a loving mother and a Galvin who always protects you. What about me? Born into a family that favors boys over girls, unloved by my father, and unloved by my mother. When I was bullied at school, no one stood up for me. Right after the university entrance exam, my parents planned to sell me for a dowry. Fortunately, I found out in time, ran away from home, and worked for 2 months straight just to scrape together enough for tuition. Luckily, I met Kalen, so I no longer have to worry about living expenses. I recounted everything in a calm voice, without complaining or crying. But it silenced the entire room. A few roommates quietly wiped away tears. Playing the pity card? Who doesn't know how to? But don't think you're the most miserable person. As long as I'm here, Susan shouldn't dream of using pitiful tricks to achieve her goals. Of course, I didn't do that just to compete for sympathy. I suddenly grabbed Susan's hair. She screamed, "Mary, what are you doing?" I said coldly, "I've suffered a lot, and I've met plenty of people like you. If you were truly sensitive, you wouldn't keep bringing up your past, forcing others to look at you with pity. You calculated correctly. You know that Kaylin is sincere, clear about her likes and dislikes, so you wanted to force her to forgive you to build a good image for yourself. You make others feel that if Kaylin doesn't forgive you, she's doing something unforgivable. Kaylin is the best person I've ever met. If you dare to pull any more shady tricks, don't blame me for being rude. Understand?" The entire room seemed to wake up. Susan's face turned instantly pale. She nodded frantically. "Don't be like that. I didn't mean anything." I sneered coldly. "Whether you did or not, you know in your heart. As long as I'm here, Susan won't dare to pull any more stunts." Meanwhile, Kaylin Bonita ran up to me, her eyes red, her nose sniffly. She shoved a bank card into my hand and said, "I have too much money. You're my best friend. Help me spend some." How could I not understand? She heard about my past, felt heartbroken, and gave me the card, wanting me to have a better life. Susan, standing nearby, saw Kaylin Bonita hand me another card. Her eyes, already red, grew even redder. She proactively spoke up. "Kaylin, do you know how Galvin and I finally left the restaurant?" Kaylin Bonita asked, "How?" Despite hating Susan, if it concerned Galvin, she still couldn't help but care. Susan recounted. In the end, we each swiped a new credit card to pay for that expensive meal. Galvin swiped nearly 17,800 yuan. His card hit the limit, so I had to swipe the remaining 5,000. I told him I could pay for my portion because it was all my fault. She told the story as if she were deeply moved, but I knew her true purpose. Wasn't to share her feelings, it was to get Kaylin Bonita to open her wallet. She thought Kaylin Bonita was a gullible fool and planned to have her pay off Galvin's debt. At this point, Susan began to cry. "Galvin is suffering so much. He just started university and already has such a big debt. He'll have to work multiple jobs to pay it back. He's just a student. He shouldn't have to endure this." She cried for a while, but saw Kaylin Bonita calmly applying a face mask, with no intention of helping. Unable to hold back, Susan asked directly, "Kaylin, didn't you hear what I said?" Kaylin Bonita's voice was even. "I heard you clearly. You said Galvin owes nearly 18,000 yuan. Don't worry, I won't pay a single cent for him. I believe with Galvin's capability, earning that money back is as easy as turning his hand over." Evidently, she had memorized the words I had spoken on the way. The message was singular. Don't spend a penny on Galvin. Susan was almost choked. "Galvin is still a student. Aren't you trusting his ability a bit too much?" Kaylin Bonita replied, "You're the one who said, don't look down on poor young people." I didn't understand it before, but thinking about it now, it makes sense. If I keep giving Galvin money, it's like looking down on his ability. No, that's humiliating him with money. I believe, with his capabilities, let alone 18,000 yuan, he can pay back 180,000. Susan still didn't give up. "You have so much money. Just skipping one handbag purchase is enough to help him. Don't you want him to thank you?" Kaylin Bonita glanced at her and asked, "Susan, do you think I'm stupid? How many times have I helped him, and have I ever received a thank you? From now on, I will absolutely not spend another dime on him. Doing so will only push him further away from me. I definitely won't repeat that mistake. Remember, to love someone, you must believe in them. Galvin is the best." I nodded in satisfaction. Exactly. Keep praising him. Just don't spend money. Praising a man costs nothing. Spending money on a man costs a lifetime. Susan was so angry she felt like spitting blood on the spot. Finally, she understood the meaning of hoisting yourself by your own petard meant. But then she felt something was wrong. The phrase, "don't look down on poor young people," she had said to Kaylin Bonita countless times, but Kaylin had never listened before. Why now? Her hateful gaze slowly rested on me. I shivered. Oh no, the protagonists are focusing on me again. Being noticed by the protagonists is definitely not a good thing. Against my expectations, after officially starting school, Susan was quite subdued in the dorm. Perhaps because she was busy working to pay off debts, she no longer had time to pull any tricks. During this time, Kaylin Bonita joined quite a few campus clubs out of interest. Without Susan sabotaging her from the shadows, Kaylin Bonita flourished everywhere she went. She almost couldn't resist seeking out Galvin many times, but remembering my advice, she ultimately restrained herself. Currently, Galvin's appearance, juggling school and part-time jobs, was certainly something he didn't want Kaylin Benita to see. Therefore, the male lead starts his business early, looking brilliant. Scene from the original novel hadn't appeared after enrollment. Galvin could only focus on studying hard to earn scholarships. Meanwhile, I, who always carried books to the library, accidentally met an important character, Jasper, Galvin's future startup partner in the original novel. Jasper was a third-year student, 2 years ahead of Galvin, intelligent, ambitious, and had long been hatching a startup plan. Unfortunately, no matter how perfect his business plan or how outstanding his talent, no one was willing to invest. In the original novel, Jasper knew Kaylin Benita had money, so he asked Galvin, who had a close relationship with her, to act as an intermediary to help persuade her to invest. Galvin saw Jasper's potential, secretly used Kaylin Benita's money to invest in Jasper's company without telling her, and became a CEO founder. Jasper was a business genius, and the company quickly became a resounding success. Galvin, thanks to this, instantly rose to prominence, becoming an outstanding young entrepreneur. But this time was different. Jasper came to me, asking me to persuade Kaylin Benita to invest. Because Jasper knew that Kaylin Benita listened to me the most now. As soon as I realized his identity, I immediately took Jasper to meet Kaylin Benita. She asked me, "Academic scholar, what do you think? Is he trustworthy?" I nodded firmly. Extremely trustworthy. "I'm planning to invest in him too." Kaylin Benita readily agreed. "Then let's invest." And so, Kaylin Benita and I jointly invested in Jasper. Galvin lost his genius business partner. I believe even if he wants to start a business now, it will be difficult for him to succeed, let alone later destroying Kaylin Benita's family company as in the novel. The peaceful days didn't last long. That day, as I returned from the canteen, I found a crowd gathered outside the dormitory, blocking my way into the room. Squeezing through, I saw Susan leaning on Galvin's shoulder, sobbing. "The salary I just received, I was planning to use it to pay off my credit card debt tomorrow. But the money in my desk drawer is gone." At that time, everyone else was participating in club activities. Only Mary stayed in the dorm. My eyebrows furrowed. I had found Susan's recent, unusual obedience strange. It turned out she was plotting to frame me with this. Galvin's face darkened. "Kaylin Benita, tell Mary to return Susan's money immediately, and I'll drop this matter." Kaylin Benita was so furious she almost lost her mind. "You're saying Mary took the money? Do you have proof? If not, stop slandering people. I can absolutely sue you for defamation." Susan's gentle voice interjected. "Galvin, let it go. Mary's family background isn't good after all. I heard she used to live in a shabby hut, only ate meat a few times a year, and had to earn her tuition money herself. Maybe she was truly desperate, and did it out of necessity." As soon as those words were spoken, the eyes of the onlookers changed when they looked at me. Kaylin Benita was shaking with anger and said, "With me here, why would Mary need that paltry amount of money from you?" Susan whispered, "Then why would she take my money?" Galvin's gaze was sharp. He stared intently at Kaylin Benita and said, "Kaylin Benita, was it you who commanded her? Mary is your loyal dog. She listens to everything you say. You didn't. Like how close I was to Susan. So you told Mary to steal the money to cause trouble and ruin her life, didn't you? Kaylin Benita, you disappoint me too much." Slap. The moment the words ended, Kaylin Benita's chest heaved violently with rage. Kaylin Benita raised her hand and delivered a loud slap right across Galvin's face. Galvin roared in disbelief. "You hit me?" Kaylin Benita replied decisively, "Yes, I hit you. Why have you become like this? You dare to slander someone who is working hard to live a better life without any proof? You weren't like this before. You used to be a very kind person who cared about others." Kaylin Benita looked at him with profound disappointment, and then added, "Perhaps. You were always this kind of person, self-righteous, arrogant, and selfish. I only saw you through rose-tinted glasses because you saved me once." Kaylin Benita was a person who valued loyalty deeply. Because of that thing called love, she once lost all reason in front of Galvin. But when it involved me, she became instantly sober. In that moment, Galvin briefly panicked, feeling an emptiness in his heart as if he had just lost something extremely important. I was about to squeeze into the crowd, but seeing Kaylin Benita slap Galvin, I immediately stopped. If she could use this opportunity to see Galvin's true nature, thus leaving him and escaping the misfortunes he would bring, that would be perfect. Susan, seeing Galvin's face swelling up from the slap, was overcome with distress and ran over. "Galvin, are you okay?" Galvin replied gently, "I'm fine." Susan stood in front of him, glaring at Kaylin Benita, and said, "Even if you were called out and lost face to the point of anger. You cannot hit people. Galvin is innocent." In any argument, the one who strikes first is the one at fault. The eyes of the surrounding crowd began to shift, filled with criticism. Kaylin Benita looks so arrogant, she doesn't seem like the type to tolerate things. We don't know who's right or wrong, but hitting first is definitely wrong. Susan looks so gentle, how could she possibly slander someone without cause? Even at this point, only my roommates still stood by Kaylin Benita, speaking up. There must be some misunderstanding. But amidst the myriad of criticisms, Kaylin Benita delivered another slap, this time to Susan. Susan clutched her cheek in horror. "You dare to hit me too?" Kaylin Benita snorted coldly. "Since everyone already thinks I'm arrogant and spoiled, if I don't make you feel a little pain, wouldn't I be wrongfully bearing this reputation?" I just wanted to cheer, "Well done." Susan was so furious, she burst into tears, her eyes red-rimmed, looking utterly pitiful. Galvin was in unbearable distress. "Kaylin Benita, how much longer are you going to cause trouble?" Kaylin Benita looked at Galvin with icy eyes, completely devoid of lingering affection, and said, "That's what I should be asking both of you." At this moment, I finally stepped forward to stand beside Kaylin Benita. Susan saw me and cried even harder. "Mary, can you please return my money? My mother raised me alone. It was very hard. I work to ease her burden. It's truly not easy. I beg you. 5,000 yuan is really important to me." As she spoke, she tried to kneel down in front of me, but Galvin quickly pulled her back. Seeing Susan's pathetic, cowering posture, the crowd immediately clamored. "To defend her, Mary, if you have any conscience left, return the money. If not, call the police." "That's right, we should report it to the school. At least she should be disciplined." I didn't bother arguing. I just opened my phone and calmly said, "I just posted a video to the school forum that can prove my innocence. Anyone who wants to, go check it out." For students today, a phone is indispensable. Everyone immediately pulled out their phones to find the video I had just posted. In the video, Susan was stealthily standing by the fire alarm cabinet near the staircase. After confirming no one was around, she took out a wad of cash, put it into a paper bag, and carefully hid it behind the fire alarm box. The corner of the video clearly showed that the recording date was today. Everyone immediately erupted. "What? Susan staged the theft herself? This kind of person is terrifying. Thank goodness for this video. Otherwise, Kaylin Benita and Mary would have been falsely accused with no way to defend themselves." "Wait, who recorded this?" I replied faintly. "Some kind person sent it to me. Perhaps they couldn't stand seeing good people like Kaylin and me being wronged. But in reality, I recorded it." I remembered very clearly that in the original novel, Susan staged this exact same accusation. To completely destroy Kaylin Benita's reputation, Susan plotted to frame her for stealing the money she earned from her part-time job. Kaylin Benita was inarticulate and impulsive, falling right into Susan's trap. Because of this incident, she was isolated by her classmates and disciplined by the school. To prevent history from repeating itself, I had secretly installed a small camera in the stairwell beforehand. Our dormitory building had an elevator, and since my room was on a high floor, normally no one used the stairs, so there was no privacy issue to worry about. Precisely because of this, Susan dared to hide the money there. Now, her face was incredibly unsightly, tears streaming down. She grabbed Galvin's hand as if grasping a lifesaver and pleaded, "Galvin, it's not like that. I truly don't remember doing that. Maybe I'm exhausted from studying and working part-time recently, and my mind was foggy. That's why I did something irrational." But this time, the surrounding students weren't buying that excuse. The person who was wrongly accused doesn't cry yet. Why would the person who did bad things cry? Isn't it obvious? It's the same old green tea playing victim trick. Cry louder? It sounds entertaining. Since they were childhood friends, Galvin couldn't just ignore her. He could only say, "Susan isn't that kind of person. There must be some misunderstanding." The crowd immediately scoffed, "Oh," when she was relentlessly biting. "Kaylin, Benita, and Mary, why didn't you mention a misunderstanding? This guy is so confident." He even said Kaylin Benita told Mary to act because she was fighting him over Susan. I'm speechless. A goddess like Kaylin Benita would fight over him? He's so ordinary. Why is he so confident? Get a grip. I think Susan and Galvin are a match made in heaven. One's a genuine green tea, and the other's a narcissist beyond saving. Lock them up together. Stop bothering everyone else. Galvin's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. Previously, at times like this, Kaylin Benita would definitely have stepped up to defend him. But now, she just pursed her lips, not saying a word. I knew she had probably truly let go. Galvin glanced at her. Seeing Kaylin Benita completely unresponsive, his face darkened even more. Both Galvin and Susan were self-respecting people. How could they endure the mocking whispers of the crowd? They hugged each other, quickly pushed their way through the people, and left in shame. Kaylin Benita suddenly called out to them, "Wait!" Galvin thought she still couldn't let go. His eyes softened slightly. He turned back, only to hear Kaylin Benita say, "Don't think this is the end of it. Our Benita family has the best legal team. You slandered and defamed Mary and me, so just wait for the lawsuit notice." Hearing this, Galvin's face turned ashen. He stared at Kaylin Benita and said, "Kaylin, you've never been like this. Was she the one who instigated you?" Kaylin Benita couldn't tolerate it anymore and shouted, "It has nothing to do with Mary. I woke up and became this way. I must have been blind to like you before. Now I'm awake, and I realize you're a self-righteous, shallow-minded person who's completely unworthy of me. So, it's best if you get out of my world." Galvin's expression was now beyond description. He looked deeply at Kaylin Benita, his voice low. "Remember what you said today. Don't come back begging for me later." Kaylin Benita replied casually, "Rest assured, it won't happen, not even in the next life." Then, she slammed the door shut. Kaylin Benita turned to me, her head slightly bowed apologetically. "Mary, I'm sorry, you got dragged into this because of me." I smiled and replied, "It's fine. Everything has been cleared up." Susan didn't achieve her goal. Instead, she was exposed in front of the crowd. I believe that after this incident, no one would believe any more of her tricks. Kaylin Benita held my arm, her voice full of gratitude. "It's all thanks to you having that video. Honestly, you are Susan's nemesis and my lucky charm." I smiled and asked back, "So, are you truly over Galvin now?" Kaylin Benita nodded firmly. Thinking back on everything he did truly makes me feel nauseous. I honestly can't understand why I thought Galvin was a good person before, and even frantically lowered myself to cling to him. I thought to myself, she must have been influenced by the original plot. As Kaylin Benita spoke, she slipped a bank card into my hand. "Mary, you keep this. I've realized a truth now. Spending money on men brings bad luck for life. Spending money on my sister brings good luck for life." The law of conservation of energy proved effective once again. To celebrate breaking free from her love-struck brain, and to thank her roommates for decisively standing by her side, Kaylin Benita invited the entire room to a lavish meal at a famous European restaurant near the school. As we left the restaurant, we overheard some students discussing Susan's lost money. I heard she hid the money behind the fire alarm cabinet and then cried hysterically when it was gone. Serves her right. Who told her to hide money in a place like that? She tried to trap others, but ended up trapping herself. Karma is real. In reality, it was I who took Susan's money. If she was determined to frame Kaylin and me, she should pay a practical price. Of course, I didn't spend the money. I secretly donated it to charity on her behalf, considering it building some good karma for her. After this incident, Susan immediately moved out of our dorm and into the room next door. That room happened to have an empty bed, but the roommates there all complained about the bad luck. Without the protagonist's halo as in the novel, Susan was completely isolated. Kaylin's family was certainly not to be trifled with. Under the intervention of their legal team, Susan and Galvin's slander against me was proven. Both were forced to publicly write an 800-word handwritten apology letter on their social media accounts, and they had to compensate me for emotional damages. From then on, they became infamous across the campus, being pointed at and whispered about wherever they went. I thought that after this, Kaylin Benita would cut off contact with the two protagonists. Unexpectedly, Galvin was shameless enough to seek her out proactively. That day, Kaylin Benita and I were eating in the canteen when Galvin approached, his voice still tinged with arrogance. "Kaylin Benita, let's talk for a moment." Kaylin Benita rolled her eyes and coldly replied, "We have nothing to talk about. Get out of my sight immediately. I can't stomach my food when I see you." Unexpectedly, Galvin didn't explode but forced himself to endure. "You won this time." He spoke with a tone full of pity, as if granting a favor, as long as you agree. "To help me overcome this current difficulty, I can agree to be with you." It turned out that without money from Kaylin Benita, Galvin had no way to pay off his father's gambling debts or cover his grandmother's medical expenses. Life was too desperate, so he finally broke his principle and came back to find his living ATM, Kaylin Benita. Kaylin Benita said with disgust, "Are you sick? Do you even deserve to date me?" Galvin frowned. Don't you still remember me? Didn't you still want me to come back and admit defeat first? I've come to you on my own initiative. What more do you want? Kaylin Bonita said bluntly, I want you to get out of my world. Galvin began to lose patience. Are you serious? You're going too far. Don't push me to the point where I truly don't look back. Kaylin Bonita answered flatly, I am serious. Get lost quickly, please. Knowing you is the worst bad luck of my life. Galvin's pride was sky high. Hearing such harsh words, he couldn't stand it anymore. He threw back a final, don't regret this, then turned and left. Kaylin Bonita watched his retreating figure and sighed dismissively. I should check the calendar before I leave the house. I nodded. Exactly. Today is clearly a bad luck day. Before the words were finished, as we arrived at the dormitory entrance, we saw Susan waiting. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She spoke with a self-sacrificing air. Kaylin, I agree to give Galvin. Up to you, as long as you agree to help him overcome this difficulty. Seeing our indifference, Susan, with an air of long-suffering compromise, spoke. As if granting a huge favor, I've already agreed to give Galvin up to you. What more do you want? Kaylin Bonita was nearly hysterical. No, no, no! The two of you truly belong together. Lock yourselves up, please. Don't let Galvin come back and bother me anymore. She avoided them like the plague, not sparing them a glance. Susan felt aggrieved. I proactively gave him up. What else do you want? Kaylin Bonita was speechless. Are both of you sick? What is Galvin? Is he money? Is he gold or jewels that everyone is fighting over? In my eyes, he's just trash. And I'm not a garbage collection station that picks up everything I see, am I? Susan was so shocked she was speechless. You truly don't like Galvin anymore? Kaylin Bonita nodded very seriously. I don't like him anymore, so stop bothering me. With that, in Susan's utterly panicked gaze, she decisively slammed the door shut. Kaylin Bonita hadn't expected that even after saying all that, Galvin and Susan still wouldn't give up. Jasper's company began to turn a profit shortly after. By the end of the year, I received a huge dividend payout. I knew that with the shares I held in the company, I wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of my life. All these good things, I had Kaylin Bonita to thank for. Therefore, I specially treated her to a delicious meal and splurged on a designer handbag she really liked. Kaylin Bonita looked at the bag and felt bad about the money I spent. It's enough that you treat me to a meal. Why waste money on a bag? I smiled and replied, because you deserve it. After spending time together, I had long since considered Kaylin Bonita a true friend. And between friends, one person cannot constantly make all the sacrifices. We had a very pleasant meal. As we walked back to school, a few thugs suddenly appeared and trailed us. Before they could make a move, the discreet bodyguards Kaylin Bonita's family had hired immediately jumped out and subdued them. With her family background, it was natural for her parents to hire protection. The thugs, seeing the situation was unfavorable, immediately confessed everything. The person who hired them was Galvin. Galvin instructed them only to scare Kaylin Bonita, and then he would arrive to play the hero, rescuing the beauty. Kaylin Bonita had developed a good impression of Galvin initially because of a similar rescue scene. This time, he intended to use the old trick to make her heart soften and get money from her as before. But he miscalculated. Kaylin Bonita saw Galvin and Susan from afar. She said coldly to the bodyguards, give them a lesson that they'll never forget. Let's see if they dare to pull stunts like this again. Galvin and Susan took a massive counterattack and couldn't get back up, daring to play tricks on Kaylin Bonita. First, they were in the wrong, and second, they simply couldn't fight back. From then on, they probably understood that they would never gain an advantage against Kaylin Bonita and didn't dare to shamelessly show up again. A year later, I heard news about Galvin again. Influenced by his gambling father, he eventually became addicted to online gambling. Initially, he won some money, thought it was good luck, and dragged Susan into it as well. But the more they gambled, the more they lost. Debts piled up, forcing both of them to quit school and flee from creditors. Galvin even had the audacity to call Kaylin Bonita, asking to borrow some money. Kaylin Bonita didn't say a word and immediately blocked his number. A few days later, she received a message from Susan. You just wait. Galvin and I have found an opportunity to get rich, and we're going abroad to start a business soon. Wait until we succeed, and we'll step on you to get our revenge. Kaylin Bonita was speechless after reading it. She had long moved on, yet those two were as persistent as ghosts. At first, I was slightly worried. What if, just like in the original novel, Galvin succeeded in his startup and came back to destroy Kaylin Bonita's family company, causing her family to fall apart? But after learning they flew to Cambodia, I was instantly relieved. 5 years later, Jasper became one of the tycoons of the business world, and because I invested with Kaylin Bonita. That year, I also became a minor wealthy woman, living prosperously without worrying about money. As for Kaylin Bonita, after distancing herself from the original protagonists, her life was incredibly free and easy. Just a few days ago, she invited me to travel abroad. I didn't hesitate and happily agreed. Both of us had carved out a beautiful future for ourselves.